Hello, everyone. Welcome to the IDM info session, take two. I apologize for last week. We're having some technical difficulties. We moved back to our original location, which we think has a better Wi-Fi connection, so we should have no problem during this broadcast. We're going to start out. I'm just going to give a quick presentation about IDM. It should last about 20 minutes. And then we're going to bring in Kevin Yuen and Guillaume, and they're going to talk. There's two students in the program, one from each year. We have a first year and a second year, and you can ask them questions directly. So I have some slides, and you should be able to see those as I go through them. First slide here is showing some beautiful product. And these are very special products. The upper left-hand corner is an Eames chair designed by Charles and Ray Eames. The upper right-hand corner is a B&O MP3 player, and the bottom product is a B&B Italia sofa. These products are not only beautiful, but they're very profitable. Matter of fact, they command a very high price point, and the reason they can do that is because not only do they provide a function really well, you know, that it allows you to sit in this chair and be comfortable, not only can you make them at a low cost and it can be manufactured easily, but the perceived value of that chair is very high, so they can sell it for a very high price. In this case, it's about $5,500 US. The sofa is around $20,000 US. So that's a lot of value that companies are able to get. And the reason they can do that is because they've combined with engineering and business, they've combined design. And that's one of the unique things about the IDM program is that we bring design to engineering and business. Here at MIT, we have a beautiful business school, Sloan School of Management. We have obviously a beautiful engineering school, which is what MIT was founded on. And now we've added design process, design thinking, and the disciplines surrounding design. We teach those in IDM so that they can be integrated into a set of capabilities that make someone very, very potent at achieving results in the real world. Here's another slide of some great products, and in this one, I just want to point out that this process of integrating those three disciplines can also work for services, so like Starbucks coffee. The product itself, well, that's a cup of coffee, but the experience of buying that coffee, the ambiance of Starbucks, the lighting, the smell, the people, the way that, how efficient it is, the sounds that you hear, all of that has been carefully designed to give you this kind of mini break in the day or like a little vacation from whatever you're doing. Airbnb is another example where just a good user experience, good UI, is something that can differentiate a company in the marketplace and make them very successful. Pixar Animation, I love Pixar in that they were the first company to really take computer animation and give it a life, give it heart, to bring emotion to a motion picture that was basically created through computer code. And that's a very magical thing, to take something as analytical as computer code and transform that into an emotional experience that makes us laugh and cry. So I think those are great examples of what this process, this integration of those disciplines can do. So what do all these successful products have in common? They all have a wonderful user interface. They have a profitable business model and exciting technologies. And as I've mentioned, they do this by combining design with business and engineering. And this is a Venn diagram that we created that we really feel expresses IDM very nicely. We have this discipline of design, and that discipline is really responsible for making products desirable, making products that we want, making products worth more than the sum of their parts, that we're willing to pay a lot of money for. Business, well, that's great. You can make something desirable, but you also have to make sure that, your operations are running smoothly, that you have a supply chain, that you have distribution models in place, that you have financing in place, that you can carry inventory, right? Because it takes, 3 months between the time it exits the factory in China and the time that you get paid from Target. So business, very important component. Engineering, you need to make sure that these products are reliable, they're robust, that they're safe, that they meet technical specifications. Depending on the complexity, you get into things like FDA or, FCC and other technical regulatory issues. And where they all intersect is what we really think is the sweet spot of IDM. We're trying to create people that have a very good understanding of these 3 disciplines and are a master of one. And so that's how we tend to admit students. We admit kind of people who are really, really good at one of these disciplines, but is also very eager to become proficient in the others. And that little intersection you can see has a heart in it. And the reason there's a heart is because all of the things that we do in IDM, we do with passion. We do it with love, and we do it with the idea that whatever we do with our lives will be good for humans and for the earth, so that at the end of the day, when you have all of these entrepreneurial or business kind of activities going on, the aggregate outcome of that is a net positive for our world, not only from a business perspective, not only from an environmental perspective, but also from a philosophical and spiritual perspective. And, I think is a lot to ask for, but if you don't try, you're definitely not going to get there. So we try. This slide, gives an example of sort of the people we want to create, with these attributes, that they're people with vision, people with passion, people with love, and then they have the skills and the abilities to actually implement their dream, to implement that vision. You can kind of see in the background some people that we've identified, and we hope to change that background slide with IDM graduates in the near future. We haven't graduated our first class yet, but that's coming this spring. Very exciting time. We work closely with industry. In this case, there's a slide of Brian Matt, the founder and CEO of Altitude, Inc., which was just recently acquired by Accenture. And Brian works very closely with IDM. All his personnel at Altitude come and give lectures, or at least a large portion of them do. Brian is in and out of the studio all the time. And the reason that he's a part of IDM is because he's attracted to it for its philosophy and its pedagogy. He has a lot to do in his life, but he feels that this is an important educational direction and mission. And so he just has a great time participating in enabling IDM. So what we try to do at IDM is we provide a design innovation culture, and that's something that you might see in any design firm. So if you go into IDEO or to Altitude or to Smart Design or all these other great firms around the world, you will have this sort of culture that embraces risk, that embraces doing things differently, that embraces challenging what is, because only in doing that can you do something that's better than what currently is done. We also teach the design process because at the heart of innovation is the design process, and that's a process that kind of combines intuition and harnesses the power of intuition with analytical processes so that you can capture the benefits of that intuitive gain, and you can build on that in a very structured way and come to a result that not only is inspiring emotionally, but is also something that's technically and economically viable. We think it's an inspiring environment, and it's full of extraordinary people. We have just an amazing staff, and our cohorts are also, in my opinion, just remarkable human beings. I couldn't be more proud of who we have as people, as part of IDM. And that is a slide of our studio with a lecture going on, and the back of Brian Matt's head, and some nice colored lights, and you can study that later. So a little bit about the program, the students, the cohorts. Right now we have 2 cohorts. We'll always have 2 cohorts, but the first cohort has 18 students in it, and the second cohort has 21. That gives us a total of 39 students in the program. They have an average of 5 years work experience before coming to the program. The average age is around 28. We have 19 men and 20 women in the program from 12 different countries. And they're listed below. I'll read them off just for those who don't get to review these slides. So the US, India, Canada, Taiwan, China, Costa Rica, Pakistan, Colombia, Japan, France, Thailand, the United Kingdom, and Honduras. And we'll see what we add this year. There are 2 options in terms of how you can go through IDM. Almost all students are doing the 2-year option, which I'll explain. And then a couple have done the 1-year option, or really it's 13 months, because you have to work through a summer to make it happen. So I'll just explain the 2-year option first. Students arrive in August for orientation. That's about 10 days. And that's a time where we all kind of get to know each other and appreciate who we are, our diversity, and all the various skills and philosophies that are brought to the culture here. And then we get into the first semester. And the first semester, we teach basically design process very heavily, with an emphasis on developing empathy and, of all things, manufacturability. And we have 2 projects that are designed to explore those 2 topics. The first project is all about empathy and design research, and doing interviews and ethnography and observational research, quantifying that, presenting that, telling a story about what you've learned so that the audience also feels that empathy that you feel from having learned this. The second project is really about basically creating a business in 7 weeks. And the students will start with nothing, and by the end of 7 weeks, they'll have manufactured 50 units of their own design, and they'll sell them all. And it's a very exciting, intense project that also generates income for the students, because they'll sell them at a profit. So that's a lot of fun. January is sort of what we call IAP around here, independent activities period, and that's time to kind of explore interests outside the program. Then in February, the second semester, spring semester, starts, and in that spring semester of the first year, we do 1 project for 14 weeks. And now what you're doing is you're putting together everything you learned in the first semester on 1 topic, 1 project, and you're expected to go much deeper on all aspects of that process. So, and then at the end of that, you should have produced an alpha prototype, a prototype that's representative of a production unit, and you will deliver what we'd call a tech package, and that's sort of a set of documentation that you could give to a factory for a quotation on manufacturing our product. In terms of how this is broken into what we call units here, or credits, academic credits, the core curriculum is 18 units, and then you're required to take 12 units of electives, and that can be in engineering or management. And we have a pretty comprehensive list of courses that we approve for credit for IDM, and you'll learn about that when you come here. In the summer, between the 2 years, we hope that someone will, that students will do something productive, like an internship. It's not required. Most students do internships, but many might work on their own projects that they're going to roll into their second year. And their second year, we kind of call the incubator year, and that's a year where, an academic year where you have all the MIT facilities and faculty and mentors and resources available for you to develop one project, one product, or one solution, or one societal solution, and all of those things will be at your disposal to sort of empower you. And the idea is that at the end of that second year, you can leave here and launch a company and hit the ground running. At the end of that year, we haven't done this yet, by the way, because we're kind of halfway through the second year for the first cohort, the inaugural cohort. But when it comes time for them to present their projects at the end of that year, we're going to understand what those projects are. We're going to get a list of desirable partners that they have in mind, and we're going to invite them on behalf of MIT to come to these final presentations so that they can pitch directly to partners that they've identified as good partners to try to move forward with. Just all part of trying to enable entrepreneurship and that vision element. The one-year option is a little bit easier to explain. It's basically the first year of the two-year option, so what I described as the first year just a moment ago for the two-year option, except that instead of taking 12 elective units, you have to take 27 elective units. So the workload is there's much more volume in your workload. I think the intensity, though, should be about the same, but there's just a lot more to do. And instead of doing your thesis over the second year, which I forgot to mention, the second year option, that second year, you also have to write a thesis. That's usually related to your project work that you're doing on that second year. Your thesis for the one-year option will be during the summer after the completion of the first academic year. And then in September, you should be able to graduate. So those are our options. I'm sure you'll have questions about that. So our IDM curriculum, ID Lab per year is 36 units. It's kind of design school, but integrated with business and engineering. You have electives that you need to take. So by the time you graduate, you should have taken 27 units of management electives and 27 units of engineering electives. And then you'll do a thesis, and that's based on your project, and that is 24 units. So what you see on this slide is the total number of units for your tenure here, whether it's the one-year or two-year option. So a typical day. So you're going to come here, and what's your daily experience? Well, on Mondays and Wednesdays, you're going to go to ID Lab, and that's the core curriculum. So this slide kind of outlines our core curriculum. From 11:30 to 12:30 in the morning on a Monday or a Wednesday, we have what we call X Hour. And X Hour is comprised of people giving talks about their experiences, ranging from students in the program. So all students are required to give a half-hour presentation during X Hour. But we'll also bring in entrepreneurs and designers and thought leaders, practitioners, all kinds of people. We even take requests, and then we'll invite them. We'll then have a half-hour break. Lunch is provided. And then at 1 o'clock, we'll start our lecture. That's more of a traditional kind of academic lecture that you'd get in college. And those topics are all about integrated design, so it could be opportunity identification. You can read this list, but how to do needs research, lectures on industrial design, mechanical engineering, sustainability, product architecture, manufacturing, leadership, risk management. And then after lecture at 2:30, we start what we call studio time, and that goes till 5 o'clock. So we have 2.5 hours where students will now take what they've learned in X hour in lecture and apply it to their projects that are being done in parallel to the curriculum. They will work in teams, interdisciplinary teams, and they'll get visited by myself and other faculty, and we'll kind of ask questions and see how they're doing and do some coaching and desk reviews or desk crits, as they'd say in design school. And so there's a lot of contact time between the faculty and the students, a lot of mentoring that can take place. I really enjoy studio time. And then at the end of studio time begins workshop. And workshop is where we just teach a hard skill, so that's like how to use hand tools, how to use power tools, how to use a vacuum former, how to use a laser cutter, how to use a CNC, how to use a bandsaw, how to use a table saw, how to use the CNC router. Those are a lot of fun as well, and those are taught by Andy McGinnis. So that's ID Lab at 6 o'clock. A lot of students will continue to practice working with the tools. That's why you put it at the end of the day. I'm going to skip this. I think we've kind of covered all this. This is sort of a diagram that sort of says that ID Lab is this place that acts as a team headquarters, a maker space, where we have design workshops, guest lectures, user-centered research takes place there, faculty lectures take place there. And you can visit that slide a little bit later. A little bit more about the projects. The projects can be student-generated. In the fall, they're prescribed, but in the spring, they're both student-generated and industry-sponsored. So we have a whole list of sponsors that are coming in to pitch opportunities to the students in about 2 weeks. And they're very exciting opportunities. The students will then vote on those. They may or may not pick a sponsored project, in which case we thank the sponsor and they can wait till next year. But some sponsored projects, actually last year all sponsored projects got selected, and the students work with real companies to find solutions to what they perceive as real problems. So they're very excited. We also have students that are working on student-generated problems or projects. So it can be either. The projects can be products. They can be tangible three-dimensional objects, but they could also be just a service or a website or an app. And then they could also just be a solution to a social problem or a societal problem. So we encourage all forms of creativity, no matter what the medium. Some of these projects may become the thesis for that second year with the intent of a business launch. And for our sponsors, their relationship with us are usually very strong, and they are intimate. And they're coming to class, meeting with the students, or flying the students to meet them somewhere, giving them tours of their facilities and cultures, things like that. And in the program, all our students own the intellectual property. So if there is something that's produced by a student that has incredible commercial value, they will indeed see a profit from that. That would have to be negotiated with the sponsor to kind of make sure that that can be brought to market in a fair way. All right, admissions. So one of the unique things about IDM is that all applicants are required to submit a portfolio. And we get a lot of questions about this, but it's not that complicated. And really, a portfolio is pretty much, can be, for business and engineering students that are not familiar with these things, think of it as sort of a PowerPoint deck that tells a story about a project you were working on. So that could be a bunch of slides that sort of talks about your process, what the problem was, what your process was in terms of how you went about solving for that problem, and then the iterations that you encountered, and then what the solution was. That would be a great kind of 8 to 10 slides. And then it would be great to see one slide on each project that you've done that you're kind of proud of. That we could see sort of a sampling of all the projects that you've worked on and what they look like and other metrics. And so there'd be some images and then some text or bullet points that would kind of call out key elements of that project. So we're going to look at your application as it's submitted. We're going to review it. We're going to look at the statement of objectives, you know, all the other sort of metrics, the portfolio. And then we're going to kind of make a short list from that. And we're going to invite that short list in for interviews. And then from there, we will make our final selection. And so we expect everyone to be able to give us an in-person interview. That can also be by phone or Skype or video. Our deadlines this year, the first one is January 20th, which is tomorrow, right? And our second one is March 10th. There is a slight advantage to applying early in that, you know, we fill slots as we, you know, based on the talent that we see. So if we see a lot of talent come in on the 20th tomorrow, that could fill a good portion of slots, and then that leaves a smaller amount of slots available for potentially a larger number of applicants. So I think you kind of get the feel here. It can be very advantageous to get your application in for the first deadline. So that's pretty much an overview of the program. This is a slide of our current our most recently admitted cohort, the 2016 cohort, and our mission, which is to enable the learning and development of extraordinary, innovative leaders that will bring new levels of creativity, vision, and integrity to business and society. All right, now, with that, I'd like to invite Kevin and Guillaume to come join me. Here's some contact information, too. This is a slide. And we'll take some questions from everyone watching. So this is Guillaume. Guillaume is in the second cohort. And this is Kevin. Kevin is in the inaugural first cohort. So Kevin's been through a year and a half, and Guillaume's been through about half a year. And they both have some wonderful insights. So feel free to ask us anything that's on your mind. All right, so here's the first question. What's the distribution of seats across the program? What does seats mean? Oh, okay. So the distribution of disciplines across the program is exactly 1/3 each. We try to maintain. That's why you'll notice our cohort sizes are always divisible by 3 and 2, because we want to have, well, not always 2, but we want to have, we want to have an equal number of men and women, and we also want to have an equal number of designers, engineers, and business folks. All right, here's a question for Kevin and Guillaume. Where do you each see yourself post-graduation? Let's say 2 and 5 years out. How do you see your IDM experience helping you get there?
Sure.
This better be a good answer. A favorable one. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so just a little bit of context. I come from a business background. So out of the 3 disciplines, I had previous experience in consulting before I joined IDM. And so in 2 to 5 years, just to answer your question, I see myself being bitten by the startup bug. I really like working in small teams, looking at different technologies, especially biotechnology. And so last summer, I worked at a firm called Modern Meadow, and they actually are trying to biofabricate leather in a lab. So imagine taking a cell and in a laboratory making sheets of leather. And so you're looking at the intersection of fashion and biotechnology. And that's really a field that I think is going to be huge. And right now for my thesis, I'm looking at the whole field of cellular agriculture, which is how do you grow and produce, whether it's food, whether it's textiles with cells, and trying to look at the design ecosystem to say how should people collaborate better. And so I'm trying to take my previous background in business into biotech and leveraging IDM as a platform where how do we integrate the 3 disciplines of design, business, and engineering, and then how do we create ecosystems going forward?
So I also have a business background. So I worked for a year in finance before coming to IDM. And compared to Kevin, my ideas about my future are less clear and defined. But I think one of the great things with IDM is that being here has helped me redefine what I wanted to do by meeting inspiring people in the cohort, and also hearing just Matt talking to us every day. And also one of the great things with MIT is that all the people and all the courses that you can follow and all the conferences that you can go to help you confront your ideas and test new ideas and find new areas where you can expand and develop your skills. So in 2 to 5 years, I'm also inspired to join startups, or either like join an existing one or create mine. And then the area where I'll work is still to be discussed.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have another question here. When do you decide if you're doing the first year versus 2-year option? That's an interesting question. So if you're going to do the 1-year option, you really kind of need to know that right from the start, because you have to take so many credits to stay on track to graduate in a compressed period of time, that you really need to start out taking 57 credits, I think, or I mean, it's just a tremendous amount of credits every semester. If you are if you start out that way and you want to switch to a 2-year, we've seen that a couple of times, that's no problem, because you can always just dial down the credits, and now you kind of extend it out over 2 years. So the short answer, if you're doing the 1-year option, you really have to know that from the first day of registration, so that you can sign up for enough credits so that you can stay on track. If you're doing the 2-year, you can change your mind, before you leave the first year. All right. Here we go. How have you taken advantage of other opportunities at MIT? I assume that's for you guys.
So right when you get onto campus, I guarantee it, you're going to be overwhelmed. There's like hackathons, there's conferences like Guillaume mentioned, whether it's in VR, AR, whether it's in machine learning, like there are tremendous number of activities on campus. And so a lot of people, they gravitate towards the D Lab, for example, which does innovation in emerging markets. And there's also the Media Lab, which many of the IDMers are actually researchers at the Media Lab, looking at different exponential technologies and how that integrates with design. And so that's more of the research side. There's also entrepreneurship activities too. So you have the Martin Trust Center, because IDM sits across engineering and Sloan. So you actually have access to Sloan communities as well. So at this entrepreneurship center, there are incubators and accelerators. And there's so much funding. If you have a great idea and you have a team, you could go and pitch, and you could be selected as a startup within the incubator. So you have potentially a summer or a few weeks where you have mentors and other students joining you on your cause. And so, yeah, these are really just kind of like the surface, tip of the iceberg of what is out there at MIT. And it's really up for you to kind of prioritize and figure out what you want to do.
I just wanted to say I totally agree with Kevin, and this is only the tip of the iceberg. And you really feel overwhelmed when you first join IDM with all the things you can do here on campus. But one thing I noticed is that sometimes I don't feel bad if I'm not going to an event to meet new people or to a conference, because I already have a cohort of people that inspire me and change me every day. And also because I feel like I draw, and we share that opinion among students. We draw inspiration also from Matt and his talks with us. And we have these talks maybe, every time we're in ID Lab. And sometimes we listen more to the inspiration talks that Matt has to give us rather than maybe the content of the lecture sometimes. But that's also very inspirational to us. And that's a great opportunity that you have here in IDM.
Thanks, guys. I'll just add to that. I think one of the things I've learned over the last couple of years is, like you said, Kevin, it's overwhelming, and Guillaume, you said it's tip of the iceberg. It is, and you guys, you coined this expression, actually I think it's already been coined, but FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And I didn't really take that seriously until this year. It's a serious issue. And so one of the things I've been doing to coach all of you is to miss out. It's better to kind of have a high quality experience that's less, with less breadth than it is to have, an incredible breadth and very low quality experience. And so I try to give assurance to you guys that you're not really missing out. You're just, it's just an illusion that you're missing out if you're not going to every single event and participating on every single team or what have you. Okay, so next question. As an engineering candidate, do I need to submit 2 different portfolios? I saw the website, but I do not quite understand the difference between the 2 parts. No, so actually I haven't looked at the website, but my recollection is that the portfolio should be comprised of maybe 2 different parts. The first part of your portfolio is, let me back up. So you're an engineer, and hopefully you've done a handful of projects, maybe more. Maybe you've done 50 projects, right? Well, pick your top 10, okay? And I would love to see a slide of each project with some bullet points that talk about the problem, the trade-offs you experienced, how you solved the problems that you faced, and what the final solution was. Okay? And then one of those projects I would like to see expanded into 10 slides that go in depth on your process. What did you do in your process? We want to understand where you are, how evolved you are in your design process. And that's how we're going to see that. So, and that's going to show all your prototyping, all your test results. I'm talking about an engineer. It's going to talk about the materials you looked at, how you tested them, how you designed your test, how you tested in the field, what with all the do you have a set of specifications, things like that. But we want to see sort of a very kind of deep presentation on one of those 10 projects. So there's going to be 10 slides, followed by 9 slides. The last 9 slides will just be one product or solution on each slide, and the first 10 slides will be about this process. Hopefully that answered the question. If not, call us. Okay, next question. Typically, are thesis projects team-based or personal? They can be both, but I would say the vast majority are personal. Right, Kevin?
Yeah. Just because everyone has vastly different interests, they're mostly personal, and you'll find an advisor who's willing to coach you through that process of research and then synthesis and writing the thesis. However, there are cases even in the first class of IDM where people have partnered up. And even though it's one big project, their thesis is focused on different perspectives of the same problem. Right? So, for example, we have a group looking at creating a medical device for hospitals in Africa. And I think one of the students who's an engineer and a business person, he's looking more on the analytical side of, okay, how do we actually evaluate, blood samples or the fluid samples? And then a designer, industrial designer, is looking at the user experience of using the medical device. So 2 different perspectives, but really tackling the same problem.
Thank you. All right, next question. If a student creates a successful startup, are there any kind of funding support available from MIT, alumni body, industries, investors? There are opportunities galore around here. I can't give you any examples because Kevin's cohort is the first cohort, and they graduate this spring, at which point we'll find out just how this sort of MIT community ecosystem really ends up funding these enterprises. But yes, the answer to that is, I would say, yes, with about 70% certainty that's going to happen. But we're also going to work to help, so like, for example, if Kevin's going to be giving his presentation in May, and he says, hey, Matt, what'd be really great is if, Ralph Lauren could show up, or people from Ralph Lauren could show up and be in the audience, we will do whatever we can to make that happen. And we're pretty good at that. So we just need a list of who needs to show up, and we'll make that happen. So there's the sort of an IDM effort that's on top of an already established MIT kind of suite of opportunities. All right, next question. Is a website or something else acceptable in place of the portfolio? No. So we've been talking about that, toying with that idea, but there's a whole host of issues that arises with that. So we give some pretty good guidelines on what to submit, and so just submit that PDF file. And then the way that we use it on our back end here, what you guys will never experience, it's very beneficial for us to have that as a discrete file so that we can share it and notate your portfolio. All right, another question here. Could you give some examples of speakers that you had during the seminars? Would you guys like to list some of your favorites?
Yeah, sure. My favorites, I think, were Sean Modi, who has his own design firm, design consultancy firm, and who advised the founders of Airbnb on the design of the platform, and also John Hirschtig, who happens to be the founder of both SolidWorks, CAD company, and also now Onshape, cloud CAD company.
Two of your favorites. Kev?
No, those are also.
That's it. Just those.
No,
I'm going to cancel all the other speakers from now on
no.
and just bring those two back. George Gendron, who I think is a great guy. Very different. He was the editor-in-chief of Inc. magazine when Inc. became very popular. And a lot of the interviews with Steve Jobs were conducted by George. So when you see quotes from the 90s, and early 2000s, they're usually from interviews with George Gendron. So George is a wonderful guy. Big fan of this program. I think he's a great speaker.
The bamboo bicycles?
Bamboo bicycles, yep. Yeah. So yeah, that's.
There's an entrepreneur in China who makes bicycles out of bamboo.
You got to use the.
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Not me though, 'cause I.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry. Next time.
So there's an entrepreneur in China who makes bicycles out of bamboo, and for sustainability reasons, he's actually, during the orientation for this cohort, there was a big workshop where the students were actually engaged in making the bicycles themselves and riding them. So that was really exciting.
Yep. We missing anybody? I feel like, there's just a whole bunch.
There's probably like one every week, and so
Yeah.
it's pretty frequent. You're just a lot.
Actually, and then for Guillaume, you guys were giving presentations all fall. So in the fall, the students are giving presentations. That's 2 per day. And that will consume, in your case, 10 days, right? Or 10 or 11 days of seminars. So we don't really have a whole lot of guests in the seminar slots, but this spring you're going to have a whole bunch. Yeah. Okay, next question. How can students make the program affordable? Are there aids or scholarships available for incoming students? Well, yeah.
I think there are many scholarships available. I'm thinking of the Legatum scholarship, for instance, but also, and more importantly, what students do, generally speaking, is they try and join a professor or a lab that's doing work or research on campus, and they try to become either a research assistant, which covers some of the tuition fees and gives you a small stipend, or become a teaching assistant, which also covers most of your tuition and gives you a stipend also. So there are many opportunities to make the program more affordable. And also the summer internship is probably a good opportunity to do that.
Think of?
No, I think in terms of activities that you can do to help support financially, that would be, those are the options. You also have like scholarships from governments and grants as well. So definitely look into those.
Yeah. So we've worked really hard to kind of keep the cost of the program down. You know, our tuition per year is $36,000 and change. That's really good. My daughter's at BU, and it's almost double that. So we feel good about that. The thing I will say is that first semester, if you can get here, just get here, that first semester, you will, during that time of that first semester, probably find all the money you need for your remaining 3 semesters here. That's sort of how it tends to work out. And then I would say that for some reason, our students seem to have no problem getting TAs, which will pay, if you're a full TA, pays all your tuition plus a pretty good stipend. So there are options there. All right, next question. How do you evaluate candidates with experience from all 3 streams rather than an in-depth work in one industry? I would say, you know, that's done probably in a similar way. You know, I mean, if you've been in all 3 streams, you know, I think it's just a matter, we factor in the depth that we'd expect, you know. So if you've just dabbled in design and engineering and business, that's probably not so good. But if you can actually make something, you know, you've made a prototype and you've designed it so it looks beautiful, and you actually sold a few units, well, that's pretty impressive, you know. So we're going to look at all of that. But, you know, if you can do all of those things, I would say that's a really great thing. So not to worry. Next question. Is it mandatory to have work experience before applying? Yeah, it really is. We did an experiment with regards to this, and it didn't work out. What we teach here is it's fairly granular. I mean, it's really, the content is really meant to help people in the real world dealing with very complicated situations. So not only is there the complication of bringing a product to market, but there's also a complication of working with people, right? Motivating people who may not be incentivized to work with you. There's also the complication of, you know, financing a project. And how do you get people to work for you for equity or for free, you know, for some sort of, you know, or just because they feel that there's purpose in this project. Those are a lot of the elements that we talk about. Those are the things that you experience. Those are really the things that are showstoppers once you get out of here, and or what you experience in the real world. If you don't have a thirst to solve for those types of problems, a lot of the content of IDM will just kind of fall on deaf ears. You just won't appreciate what we talk about. So yeah, we really feel strongly that you have some work experience. Now, we recommend 3 years work experience or more, and we do make some, we compensate for intensity. So if you've had 2 years of something that's like super intense and epic, you know, near-death experience, that's how I define epic. If that's true, then yeah, 2 years experience will be fine, you know. But if it hasn't been very epic, it's going to have to be more like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. But we take that all into consideration. Okay, next question. Can I expect to find research related to automotive design or transportation? Absolutely. That's being done all over the place.
I can probably answer that because that's one area that interests me. And there are many, yeah, that's exactly the same at MIT. So there's research on electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, solar vehicle. There's a solar team at MIT that works on designing a solar car that races in different countries around the world. There's an electric vehicle team which designed electric motorcycles and took part in races all over the world. There's also automotive labs, like the Sloan Automotive Lab, that focuses on combustion engines. I mean, there are so many opportunities. And if you have others, Kevin.
Yeah, didn't we have dinner with the CTO of Tesla?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So like there are so many opportunities. And there are, I think even in automotive, there's so many different departments who are looking at the same problem in different perspectives. So I was taking a course at the Media Lab just focused on autonomous delivery. So imagine Uber that was autonomous delivering packages to you, and we were just looking at the experiences of users of accepting and like how does the system work. And so yeah, you could take classes, you could have research. I know some of my classmates in the first cohort, they're looking at opportunities in Hyperloop, for example, and Tesla. And so, you know, the list is pretty endless.
Great. All right, next question is, outside of the lectures and labs, what are the students' schedules like? And I'll let you, that's for you guys for sure.
In short, pretty busy, I think. What does my schedule? So it's not that my schedule is packed with classes, but it gets packed with group meetings and just work, and also all the opportunities that we mentioned: conferences, hackathons, events, trips, and so the schedule is completely packed. And
yeah, definitely. I would also say, because it's such a small cohort, there's an appreciation for the students as well, and your classmates. So we hang out a lot. I mean, the first and second cohort is almost like family. And so we go to each other's, like we throw parties, we go out, and you know, that's on the side of, hey, do you know what? When we're working on a thesis, do you want to just hang out and have a working session? So like, it's really collegial, and that's really what makes IDM special. And it's not like a big program where everyone's kind of acquaintances. You kind of really know who you're working with and your family.
Great, thanks. Okay, another question. What are some previous internships that students have been on? Kevin?
Well, there's a huge spectrum. There's, I guess there's a few groups. There's students that have been working on their own startups. So we have Charles, who's working on VR, AR for elderly and senior care. We have Alicia working on creating bras that have wearable technology to sense heart disease. We have Honey looking at maternal health in Africa. So these are like the startup groups of IDM classmates actually creating their own startups. We have those that are joining startups. So Tammy was looking at Chinese translation, for example. Corporate incubators and innovation groups. So we had some classmates working for Mozilla's innovation division, for example, working directly with the chief innovation officer. So that was really, really cool. And you have people joining startups. And it's across all these different sectors. You have people interested in machine learning, VR, AR. So just think about like the exponential technologies. And one of the things that we're trying to figure out as a program is, how do we link integrated design and apply those into the different technologies? And it's great because in class or in studio time, you learn about the design process, and it's a very practical integrated approach to it. But then outside of the studio, it's like, how do I integrate that into the different facilities and the research that other people are doing?
Perfect, well said. All right, so it's now 1 o'clock. We have to end the info session, but I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. If you have other questions, please send us an email at idm@mit.edu. And again, thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you.